Thank
Where he said,
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Alien Con Day 2. Actually, Day 3. For those of you who don't know me, I am Robert Calamity. I have the privilege and the honor of being the narrator, the voice, the man behind the curtain for this wonderful show, Ancient Aliens. And if I could, I want to tell you a short little story. When I was first approached by Kevin Burns, who unfortunately won't be able to be here today, the executive producer, I had a couple of questions for him. He told me the concept of the show, and I said, Kevin, what if it were true? And he said, Robert, what's your next question? I said, Kevin, is it possible? He says, you have one final question before I answer. I said, could it be? And he answered by saying, ancient astronaut theorists say, without further ado, I'd like to introduce some of the wonderful ancient astronaut theorists here and the executive producer, actually some producers of the show. So first I'd like to introduce the fabulous, prolific author and owner of Adventures Unlimited Press, the amazing David. Next up, author and investigative mythologist, you know him as William Henry. Next up, the amazing Linda Moulton Howe. Next up, one of the producers of Ancient Aliens, Mr. Max Thompson. Even though this next fellow needs no introduction, you know him as Giorgio. The rest of the world knows him as the guy with the hair. Ladies and gentlemen, next up, another producer, David Silver. We have the author, former investigator of the UK Ministry of Defense, Mr. Nick Poe. Author and spiritual teacher, Rabbi Ariel Bar-Sadat. Psychologist, founding curator of the Joseph Campbell Archives, Mr. Jonathan Young. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Hi, everybody. Take questions from you today. There will be mics set up on either side of the room, so please come up to the mics. Not all at once, please. Take your turn.
Ryan, go ahead. Thanks for being here. My interest in ancient aliens actually began with the Sphinx, and I began reading a lot of things indicating that it's probably a lot older than what you might read in a traditional textbook, and that the lines are probably from the sea and water. I'm just wondering if you guys could talk about how old do you think it really is, why do you think it was there, and do you think it's a civilization that predates the Egyptians as we know them, and did that have anything to do perhaps with ancient travelers? Thank you.
Well, let me just say this. When you're in Egypt, it's clearly a layer cake. When you
get to Egypt and you very clearly see Saqqara, 2500 BC, for example, the Step Pyramid, and they try to argue that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built 500 years within that time period. You go down south and you get down to Abydos, the Temple of Seti, the Gate of the Gods, where the helicopter is, and you get a really good look at 1400 BC. You go to Dendera, you get a really good look at 300 BC. And even to the untrained eye, you start to be able to pull out the layer cake and your eye begins to adjust to say, okay, I understand the way they progressed on this. And then you get back to the Giza Plateau and you get back to the Sphinx, and you can easily look at that and say minimum 10,000 BC. Minimum. Because it just does not fit anything else that we have seen elsewhere in Egypt. And personally, standing in front of the Giza Plateau, in my gut, I'm comfortable with between 10 and 50,000 years old for the pyramid, and also I put the Sphinx in that category as well, since they seem to work together. Because remember, the Great Pyramid was sealed, and so there had to be an entrance to the Great Pyramid, and that entrance, we believe, was actually the Sphinx. And you would enter through the tunnel system, access beneath the Sphinx. Great question.
Hi, my name is Martin. Huge fan of the show. Thank you. I have a question, and I'm hoping that everybody can agree with me. In the future on Ancient Aliens, is there going to be some kind of contest maybe where well-lucky viewers can actually travel with you?
How do we choose which one of you goes? We don't have plans to do that, but thank you. That's a great suggestion, and one that I promise we will bring up.
Hi there, DJ Reading here. My heart's getting out of my chest. So my question will be, has any government all around the world you guys been at, has anybody approached you guys to kind of aid them to make an official disclosure of all this happening right now?
Aid them?
For you guys to help them?
No.
No? What would be your answer if anybody asks you?
Those of us who have followed the work I've been doing with John Burroughs on the RA Bentwaters phenomena, after he nearly died from heart damage apparently caused by terahertz frequency in the lights that he was exposed to in Bentwaters, hard to prove, but that's the medical speculation. He got out of the hospital and started filing Freedom of Information Act requests with the MOD. And he was going after very specific lines of question and ended up getting a leverage out of an admission that even though the MOD had said that it had passed all of its UFO files over to the National Archive, that it had actually withheld 18 UFO-related files, including 6 policy files with numbers and letters that people who have worked in the UK say these are real numbers, this is the way it would be listed. And Nick can pick this up from me here in a second. We had letters that came in the fall of 2015, wasn't it, Nick, saying, or 14, that they would release all of these UFO-related files that came through John Burroughs FOIA in either 9 months or a year, which would have been by now for sure. And the latest we thought would be the spring of 2016. And Nick, if you could pick this up about what has happened now, about how the files only 3 or 4 months ago were transferred from the MOD to the National Archive, and then what happened that has got us all stunned.
Sure. As I mentioned, the British government is doing this declassification and release program, 55,000 documents released. There are, as Linda just said, 18 files left. They were transferred from the Ministry of Defense to the National Archives on June 30th this year. We were expecting them to be released later this year, and then, in a move which even I, with my 21 years in the MOD, have said is absolutely unprecedented, the MOD said, wait a minute, give them back. So the National Archives had to send the files back to the Ministry of Defense, and the Ministry of Defense are now looking at redacting some of the information in those files, and the earliest that we can now expect these files to be released is March 2017. And even I, who worked on this program, am surprised, disappointed, frustrated at this. I mean, it's an absolute bombshell. And just to follow up on one of Linda's points, there was a document, there was a British intelligence study called Project Condign, which was, the formal title was Unidentified Aerial Phenomena in the United Kingdom Air Defence Region. We love our titles. And one of the lines in this declassified report said it might be postulated that the Rendlesham Forest incident was an occasion where UAP witnesses were exposed to radiation for longer than is normally the case. And on the basis of that admission, John Burroughs' lawyer managed to get a settlement for him with the VA for his heart problems. So, you know, that's a great point. Interested in the technology side of this, and it is one of the key reasons for UFO secrecy is technology acquisition, and basically people wanting to make a weapon out of this. I mean, Project Condign talks about constructing a directed energy weapon out of this technology. It's all out there. This isn't speculation. It's in the government's own documents. So in a kind of sense, you've had disclosure already, but it's not with a big D. It's with a little d. They sneak it out.
Specifically convinced you know, that not only have aliens been here already, but continue to visit the planet?
Yeah, sure, I can be the first to answer that. For me, I mean, people ask all of us, I think, that a lot. For me, it's going to be something off planet, literally, and that would be structures on the moon, structures on Mars, structures that aren't on Earth. And so it would be, yeah, things that we've discovered on the moon, including, I mean, I believe that pyramids, obelisks, structures on the moon. So that's mine.
Can answer.
Yeah.
What was the first piece of evidence for you guys personally that convinced you, you know, that the alien phenomenon is happening? You know, well, I guess let's make it specific. That happened in the past. You know, what convinced you that they had been here and you know, in the ancient past?
For me, the human body is that body of evidence that I'm looking for. Because time and again in myth and in sacred tradition, you hear of gods coming down, mating with human females in the Egyptian.
Where are we going with the evolution of this thought? You have us all captivated, and we understand your language, and we're sitting on the edge of our seats.
Well, the purpose of the show is
as a producer on the show, the purpose is really to continue to ask questions. There's never going to be a period at the end of the sentence. There's never going to be a point at which we can say, now we know the truth about how we got here, about how, you know, the universe works. There's always another question. I think where it's going, where it's evolving to, is that you're seeing more and more stories coming out in the media about new planets, new habitable planets that are being discovered, new archaeological finds. We're seeing more and more mainstream acceptance of the idea that there really is intelligent alien life out there in the universe. So to me, it's looking at the past and bringing it to the present and making the connection between the two. So I think as moving forward with the show, you're not going to get answers necessarily, and I mean, unless we get them, unless they come down, which maybe they will. But the point is that it's what's evolving are the types of questions we're asking. and the type of information that people used to speculate about that we now know is true. Things that in the past, maybe in mainstream archaeology or mainstream scientists said, well, this is ridiculous, or this is, there's no validity to this idea, that they now look at these same questions and they're not only are they not saying that anymore, but they're accepting certain things as fact that they didn't before. I mean, a perfect example, which is not necessarily alien related, but when you look at a lot of historical stories, the city of Troy was considered mythological for hundreds and hundreds of years. In the Greek mythological tradition, Troy was considered just part of the story until they found the ruins. Now they know that Troy exists, and not only Troy, but other lands that they thought were mythological. There's a city off the coast of Egypt. I think it's Herculaneum or Hercules. Something with Hercules in it. But anyway, this again was a lot of the ancient Egyptian stories took place in this area, and they thought, well, this is just part of the story. This land doesn't exist. Now they found the ruins beneath the sea. They know that it does exist, and so now they're talking about. I mean, you have to look at the stories now and say, if that place that we said was mythological is not mythological, what else about those stories is not mythological? So that's where I think what's evolving is simply that, the information that we have to work with, and that's what we try to do. What we try to present with each new season is the latest information and trying to build upon what we've already established with the series.
But I cannot top this.
Sharing in our previous forums, I always make it a point that people understand that the Bible was written a long, long time ago by people very, very far away, and that our rendition of the Bible in our traditional Western Protestant English does not do justice to what the original teachings are. I will tell you, as a scholar, which I document in my books, which again, I offer freely to people. Go to my website, koshertor.com, scroll down to the bottom left, there's a free book for everybody here. All the sources that document what the biblical teachings actually are from the original sources. It has been always known that there is other intelligent life out there, and that our understanding of religious concepts like angels and demons and the like need to be re-understood in light of what we now understand as our intelligence and our science and technology has evolved. And religion needs to evolve. Everything, remember the verse in the book of Ecclesiastes, is a time and a purpose for all things under heaven. As anyone from the Eastern traditions know, there are cycles. Cycles in nature, cycles in the world, there are cycles in human consciousness. We are in the process of that right now. As religions today are falling apart because our realities today are not addressing the fantasies and misunderstandings of religion from the past. And that is why people are falling away from the organized structures and are looking for the answers.
Anybody else seen this at that time? Because that seems to be real important. And what those craft look like.
Well, I think one resource that you can use starting today is the MUFON organization, because they collect different data from around the world. So their website is right up your alley. And things are changing right now. These databases will become bigger, and ultimately nobody will be able to ignore them any longer.
And earthfiles.com, that I've been producing since 1999, my goal is to do the in-depth interviews to flesh out where I can get DD-214s from military people and certificates, even if they can't go on the record with their name. I've done this successfully dozens of times, and this is led to breakthroughs because there are so many people, military, either active or retired, and they don't want their real names to be used, but the information that they provide is so significant. So at earthfiles.com, over the last 16, 17 years, if you go there, there are about 3,000 in-depth reports with about 70,000 images, maps, illustrations. It's divided into science and environment and real X-Files. And the real X-Files, some of those cases, they are unique, but the combination between the database of MUFON and then a few of us that are really trying to document the in-depth and evolutions with people. There are some people I have done reports over the whole 15 years, and you really begin to get insights into what might be the dialogue between something that is non-human and human. So for those of you who are not familiar with earthfiles.com, check it out.
Thank you.
Presentation versus actually producing
I personally don't differentiate. I think it's important to take all of these amazing experiences as things beyond our understanding. There is a level of development that has certain answers. In religious circles, we call this Sunday school. That it's very clear, this means this always. Then you develop your understanding of things, you get a little further. Einstein said as the boundary with what we know grows, as we know more and more and more, the frontier grows, and beyond that frontier is what we do not know. So rather than feeling more and more sure of ourselves, we're actually more and more baffled, and that is a sign that we're coming along. So when we have stories, and mostly we have stories, there are some hard evidence, but the stories for me are the most exciting part. When we have visitations from above or from other dimensions, I take it all as sacred, as powerful, and as helpful. Now, there are different schools of thoughts about whether there is, mischief afoot, whether there is ill intent from these visitors. I'm a psychologist. I think that the person having the encounter is either coming there with goodwill, and their projection is this is going to be positive and loving, constructive, or I come with my fears, and then I go into my defensiveness, and I'm afraid, and so I see things that could be interpreted as dangerous. It's very much how we deal with our encounter with this thing that is beyond ourselves. In the last panel I mentioned the movie Arrival that's about to come out, and they talked to me, it's more scientific, that is, they did more research on what it might really be like, and how strange, how very different from us. The encounter with something that is not speaking English, not walking around on two legs, something really beyond our understanding. I think that's the most powerful part of the whole thing. Mentors. Well, you've got some mentors here. Look all our websites up and then follow the threads of what speaks. Credit for coming to this gathering, this rare.
On this planet together. And the only way that it will work out is not through competition, but through cooperation. And so, to answer the last part of what your question was, I would not be sitting here if it weren't for all of you, and including some of my colleagues here. Because before Ancient Aliens even happened, I started Legendary Times in 1998, but I actively began studying this stuff when I was 10, 12 years old. And I mean, to consider David Childress, one of my closest friends today, it's insane to me, because I've been following him for 30 years, since the 80s when his first book started to come out. So it's an incredible journey, but we are taking this journey like Jonathan was saying, we're taking this journey together, even though sometimes it feels like it's a lonely road. Look at us, it really isn't. We're all in this together. So it's a magnificent journey.
Karnak in France is a big alignment of standing stones, manors, that had many hundreds of them, and that was featured in an Ancient Aliens episode. Yeah, archaeologists have no idea what Karnak, even French archaeologists, they have no explanation for it at all, who built it or why. The idea that it's the Milky Way, all these stones, I mean, that's kind of a new idea to me. It's sort of I actually, no one knows.
I just looked up some Google images of aerial views of Karnak, and my initial assessment would be it's not a representation of the Milky Way. However, that's just 4 seconds of looking at a screen. However, I have been to Karnak many, many times. It was only an hour and a half from where I grew up in Europe, so I used to spend a lot of time there. What is fascinating about Karnak and that whole area there is the mathematical messages that are clearly embedded in those stones, because French archaeologists and, French mathematicians actually spent a lot of time there and determined that many of these stone rows are part of the Pythagorean theorem. They're part of different, geometric laws and things like that. And archaeology agrees that these stones are at least 5, if not 8,000 years old. This is what the archaeologists are saying. We, or personally, I'm suggesting they're even much, much older than that. But the fact that we have the Pythagorean theorem and a squared plus b squared equals c squared, that we have this in stone from arguably 5,000 to 8,000 years ago, right there, that should be on the front page of the New York Times. Because this stuff was not invented, or reinvented, shall I say, with Pythagoras and some, of the algebraic equations from the ancient Arabs and stuff like this. There's stuff that goes back even further into time, concise mathematical messages, and nobody wonders why. And the only reason, or the only answer that we're mostly given is that it's coincidence. And I say, forget about coincidence, put it where the sun doesn't shine. It is impossible that everything is a coincidence. After a while, even coincidence no longer makes sense.
The western end of Karnak are obelisks, fallen obelisks. So it's
one of the
biggest. It's a line of obelisks, really.
And one of the biggest obelisks in the world is called the Comte Menhir. It's a giant thing that has now it's fallen down and is broken into 3 pieces, but each piece is as big as a railway car. Incredible. Okay, next question.
The powers of the world coming forward with this, because without them, really, is it really a full disclosure? So, what are your predictions?
You are inside disclosure right now. This is disclosure. It's been going on for a long time. People wait for one singular press conference. I've got news for you. It will never happen. Because this whole process, this whole convention, seriously, is part of disclosure.
Yeah, and we were talking about Project Condign. You read all 466 pages, and it is unclassified. It was UK eyes only. You are in confirmation. It is a science technology report by the DI-55 and the Ministry of Defense about unidentified aerial phenomena that is every description you've ever heard of UFOs, and it's being tied to frequencies that the governments are studying to make both weapons and know that they can impact humans. That 466-page report from the UK is confirmation, but it is not presented to the planet as here are the facts, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of it is being redirected for military applications. This is one of the big stumbling blocks just going forward. I'll just share briefly, it was in the January-February time when Barack Obama was elected president, first time. And there's a band that I have trusted to get me really solid information in the Washington, D.C. area for a very long time. It's proved to be quite accurate. And I got a communication. We don't communicate through phones or computers. We communicate on the web. And not long after Barack Obama was elected, I got a communication. Linda, I want you to know, we now have a timeline. 20 2016 is the year that we are going to get out, one way or the other, that we're not alone in the universe. And the communication was, it doesn't matter if it is microbes on Mars or swimming creatures in Enceladus. This planet has been held back from even a confirmation that there's other life in the universe. And that is, in part, answer here. It may not be that we're going to go to humanoid aliens of various types for a while, as you're saying, within the next decade maybe.